When it comes to the things that make our lives better, more convenient and more entertaining, it's size that counts. From mining to construction, from entertainment to maritime, big equipment is what keeps our industries operating, gets product to shelves and keeps our economy working.
But have you ever considered how large equipment gets from place to place?
With enormous growth but underdeveloped infrastructure, it's the developing world that has the biggest challenges when it comes to getting unimaginable scale moved from one destination to another.
I'm here to discover the inner workings of South Africa's transportation industry and follow some of the biggest freight ever to travel this dynamic and exciting country. I'm Rob Bell, and this is Abnormal Load. The country of South Africa has given the world a great deal. Nelson Mandela, Elon Musk, a model for peaceful democracy, the Vuvuzela. All right, it's not all been brilliant. But in the world of industry, what's really put this country on the map won't be found above ground. It's down below.
Coal, formed over millions of years through biological and geological processes. It's the largest source of electricity on Earth and forms 77% of South Africa's energy mix.
But coal isn't just a fuel used to heat our homes and keep our lights on. In South Africa, its use is far wider than that.
Sasol is South Africa's coal-to-fuel innovator. Here they synthesize a whole range of products from coal, including chemicals that help clean our pools or fertilize our soil. Today's Abnormal Load is a consignment of storage tanks that will hold chemicals from Sasol's Midlands plant.
ERD Manufacturing is one of a number of steel and engineering workshops in the Vaal Triangle region that serves the petrochemical industry here.
ERD Manufacturing have been hard at work, and it's D-Day for delivery of their Abnormal Load.
My name is Rian Jansen van Vieren, and I'm responsible for the workshop and the operations.
My name is Rudy Fenster. What I'm doing for a living is busy with a business. It's a light to medium engineering firm.
ERD's main purpose is to fabricate according to our client specifications. Any material regarding steel, metal, pipes, aluminium, we're doing stainless steel.
On site, we fabricate vessels, especially for Sasol and Midlands.
The storage bin is for Sasol. We were asked to fabricate the 2 tanks for them.
The product gets stored in that tank. It's sulfuric acid. What they do is they sell it out to distributors.
The storage tanks have a combined weight of 24 tons. Not the heaviest load, but they stand tall, making them too high to fit under regulation bridges and other obstacles. Added to this, their weight is unevenly distributed, making the onload even more tricky.
Getting them to their destination will require nerves of steel.
The 55-ton Zoomline crane will maneuver into position to be at an optimal distance from both tanks to reduce hang time and ensure maximum accuracy. The hydraulic trailer will then be reversed into position, and using 10-ton lines on each support, the crane will lift the storage tank into position, ensuring it's evenly balanced on the trailer. The task is then repeated for the second trailer, a smaller load, yet no less important or dangerous. It's an excruciating task for both crane operator and rigger, who have to ensure absolute accuracy to prevent damage to the fragile exterior of the tank and the safety of the team around them. ERD are ready to unload their storage tanks, and it's time to call in the cavalry.
My name is Eddie van Heerden. I'm the owner of the transport company moving these 2 vessels.
Myself and Eddie van Heerden come a long way. First, when I was a general manager at ERD Fab, and they are very capable and reliable.
It's nice to be a shackle in a chain because you do your part, so that the others can do their parts. It's like a drug. Once you start doing it, you don't want to do something else. When you do normal loads, it's irritating because it's the same thing up and down. When it's an abnormal load, there's different challenges to each and every load, and every time you've got butterflies because it's a new adventure, different things that you got to check.
I'm Donald Petare. My job is to lift the material that is difficult to lift by hands. Today I'm going to lift the tanks. I'm going to load 2 tanks on different trucks. It's challenging on our task because anything can happen on the lifting. So we need to barricade first. Then we need to identify the risk and the hazard.
Most important with this load is left to right. You've got to make sure that your center of gravity is on top of one another from the load through to your vehicle. Sometimes you've got to load it straight with your trailer on the right-hand side with a 3 or a 4 meter overhang on the other side to be able to get your balance and your stability in place.
Jan, you'll be my eyes on the opposite side where I can't see. Daryl, you'll also be my eyes while we are loading. Yes. Okay, if there's anything, guys, please shout. As soon as we are having a problem, please just stop immediately and then we'll revise. To be able to load that tanks, we have to have a sufficient crane. We had to obviously look at the weight of the tank, and then from there we monitor the weather.
Because of their colossal size, even in the smallest crosswinds, the tanks become giant sails. And the challenge then becomes in preventing them from swaying about in the wind, which could damage the trailers, the tanks themselves, or worse still, cause serious injury to the workers. Scientifically speaking, this is about preventing the build-up of momentum. So, if I take this small toy truck here, run it along this surface at about 5 kilometers an hour, it's very easy for my body to stop that. That's because it's light, it didn't build up much momentum. Scale that up to the real thing. If I tried to stop a life-size truck, even at just 5 kilometers an hour, I'd be toast. So even if the tanks start to sway at a low speed, because of their giant mass, they'll build up a huge momentum, making them difficult to control.
The wind is very a risk when it comes to the lifting. When you lift something, then because of the wind, it's pushing the load of the crane, and also it can be danger to the crane. The crane can fall because of the wind.
Right, everybody in position. The wind at first this morning when we just started was 14 knots. And as soon as you go over 30, you're going into a danger zone. Donald, wait. Donald, wait.
Stand by. Put it back down and check what's on.
The wind has picked up to a 32-knot gust. The crane operator isn't happy and sets the load down again. The team really needs a calm patch. Any deviation could see the load topple over when it's on the road.
You never know what's going to happen. By a small mistake, can really have damage. Donald, hold on. Just keep it right there. You can lose a life.
In Sasselberg, the wind has picked up again. Lifting the storage tanks is starting to look unlikely. This has a massive impact on the schedule, which has to follow a precise series of milestones.
It's a big challenge. You've got to work with municipal escorts to get them to escort you safely through the road because it's an abnormal route. And then you've got to get another guy which is accredited with the Department of Transport for the application of the permit. It took us 2.5 weeks to get the permits issued.
If the team can't load the tanks, it will mean even longer delays, as the correct permits will have to be re-registered. And it could be weeks until this all lines up again. And time is money.
If the transport guys is late, the permit will be expired. Everything will just fall apart. Luckily, the wind was down to 24. Then we just made a lift. Right, on your call, on your call, on your call.
With the wind down to safe levels, the team attempt the lift again. It's a painstaking process as Donald monitors the movements inch by inch.
Right, Daniel and Daryl, just keep it like that, keep it steady.
The load comes down, perfectly balanced. The team breathes a sigh of relief, but they're still only halfway through, and the wind could pick up again at any moment. With the experience of the first tank behind them, the team move quickly onto the second.
We have to communicate between the riggers and the crane operator and those who are assisting the rigger and crane operator. We have signs that direct what we have to do on that time.
In the center, Donald, in the center, please.
You legally be nervous up until you see everything is right, because you cannot know what will happen, even if you say this thing is safe.
Right, Donald. Right, I think we are fine. I think we are fine.
Check the position in that side.
Right, Donald, put it down and hook off. Right, well done, guys. Donald, come in.
Donald has the tank on the low bed trailer and perfectly balanced. For the rigging team, the pressure is off.
I'm glad that we could get it first time right, and yes, we are delivering tomorrow.
It's now down to Eddie and his team to ensure the safe delivery of the storage tanks.
Hi, my name is Ben. I'm a truck driver at Van Heerden's Transport, driving abnormal vehicles. I've been driving for 7 years now. To transport the abnormal loads, every load is different. The traffic, the routes that you take, it's not always the same thing over and over and over and over again.
Now, these two specific loads is abnormal because of the width. Anything over 2.6 on width is abnormal, and everything over 4.3 loaded height is also abnormal.
The convoy's route covers little more than 7 kilometers, but presents numerous obstacles. Accompanied by a police escort, the loads will proceed to Paardeberg Road, where they face the first of these obstacles. This is a sharp left turn across traffic, where the driver must make absolutely certain of the width of their load and prevent it from snagging any signage. The load then proceeds to Jan Haak Avenue, where it faces 2 sets of low-hanging power lines. From there, the load will need to make a sharp left turn onto open veld through a narrow gate before making its way to its final destination at the refinery. It's a 2-hour journey with a host of challenges for drivers Ben, Andries, and lead driver Eddie.
With the tanks loaded, the route planned, and the necessary permissions and assistance all lined up, the trucks are positioned in place, ready for the morning when they'll depart.
It should be all systems go for the Van Heerden's team, but Eddie starts the day with bad news, and a frantic change of plan is required.
Ben, as we explained this morning, the problem that we had with the accident on the R59 last night at more or less 7 o'clock, we were told that no power lines were going to be cut off for us to be able to move underneath these lines. Now, as you can see, the first line that we have to go underneath is 6.75. We went with the chief of Eskom this morning and we rerouted to be able to go underneath the line that they cannot cut because of the other line that's been damaged last night with an accident.
The route now proceeds as per the original plan, but will require the trucks to go off-road to fit under the raised section of pylons. This will bring added complications for the drivers, as their suspended trailers might not have enough clearance on the rough terrain. And of course, there's the electrifying threat of the live wires above them. Driver Ben and team leader Eddie are ready to get going. Their first obstacle is the left turn into the busy Paardeberg Road. The convoy departs with traffic police riding ahead to stop the flow of traffic.
The most important factor that we got to take in consideration is the safety of road users.
It's quite stressful to have all the vehicles around you.
And each and every road user wants to get to his destination as soon as possible, so you're in his way.
Normally when I get out from the start, I start sweating. There's a point on the left-hand side, a nozzle that's sticking out. And around corners, bends, the pavements and the stop signs, everything that you need to be constantly keep a lookout. Every 2 seconds, I'll keep a watch out on that mirror for that pipe.
Ben has timed his approach perfectly, and the load is away through the 90-degree turn. Now it's the second truck's turn. The second truck proceeds smoothly too.
It's a great relief to be around that T-junction there. Everything is safe and that you haven't touched or damaged or scratched anything.
The storage tank loads face a unique conundrum ahead. The slower they go, the safer they'll be. But as the day wears on, the temperature increases and the power lines begin to sag. They need at least a 1 meter clearance to ensure that the charge doesn't jump from the lines to the truck below. This load, made out of steel, is hardly insulated against the 80,000 volts that run through these lines. For Ben and his team, this could be a life or death obstacle.
The drivers will have to travel off-road to fit their tall loads under the highest elevation possible, a point right underneath the pylon. But it's not just the overhead wires that are a concern for the team. The specialty trailers, ordered long before the improvised route of today, may be too low to travel over this rocky Highveld scrub.
These drivers are literally caught between a rock and a hard place.
When I'm approaching power lines, I start worrying.
When we get to the first power lines, they confirm to their people at the substations. At the same time, we have a vehicle driving in front of the load, which has got a stick, which is 100 to 150 millimeters higher than the load to secure. So once we get to the line, we make 100% sure what the height of the line is. Otherwise, you get the current that jumps through onto your truck, and it can blow your tires and it can kill your drivers.
Although the height clearance looks good, any distance shorter than a meter could see the charge jump from line to tank. Effectively, a 12-ton mega conductor.
Ben and the first load is safely through, but it's the second load with an increased height that has the lower trailer. Will it have enough ground clearance to avoid getting stuck?
This is quite nerve-wracking. My mind is still telling me those power lines are still alive. And anything can happen.
Andries has done it. While overcoming the obstacle, the pressure's not over for the team. The final test will be a 90-degree turn onto a dirt road and on to the final destination.
The team are heading through no man's land in order to access the Midlands back gate. The front entrance won't work. With its myriad of pipes and containers, the 6-metre-high tanks just won't fit. So it's back gate or bust.
The two gates, the 6.5 and our loads are 6.1. So we've got to negotiate those loads very carefully.
Approaching the gate, I've already starting measuring my mirrors to see that the load will go through.
Ben's first attempt at the turn comes to a halt. The angle is too acute to make it through the gate. You'll have to back up to allow a straight path through the perilously tiny opening, navigating the traffic on this busy private road.
Even if you have to crawl through it, make sure that the clearance on both sides is correct.
The tanks squeak through. With an understanding of the angles required to get through the gate, second driver Andries nails his approach first time. It's all smiles for the Van Heerden's team as they make their way towards their final destination, the Sasol Midlands plant.
It's like going to ask your parents to get married and they said yes, and it's a very relief after you deliver the float.
It's like a little boy that gets a packet of sweets or an ice cream on a Sunday afternoon after he had his lunch. It's nice to be able to give a successful service to a customer that needs it.
Successful deliveries like this one keep the engines of industry turning. And for a country like South Africa, those industries tend to be resource intensive, like mining, manufacturing and chemical processing. But not all of South Africa's natural resources have to be dug out of the ground.
Cape Town has one of the most scenic coastlines in the world. Its world-class beaches bring in much-needed tourism dollars. But what lies underneath these waves is just as valuable.
This is part of an exclusive economic zone, or EEZ, that extends up to 370 kilometres offshore. These sea zones give a country special rights regarding the exploration and use of marine resources like fisheries or natural gas reserves. And to make use of and protect these resources, a country needs vessels, big ones.
My name is Brent Sickle, and I'm the production manager for Damen Shipyards Cape Town.
Damon has already built ships for the South African Navy and now exports across the continent.
We've got the 5009 vessel, it's known as the FCS, the Fast Cruise Supply Vessel. It's used for the transport of personnel and cargo to offshore platforms as well as oil rigs.
This 59-metre long, 9-metre wide ship is also used as a security patrol vessel. Being fuel efficient and easy to maintain with low operating costs, these ships are ideal for patrolling EEZ waters.
Well, it takes between 12 and 16 months to manufacture vessels such as this. What is special about the way we do it is not only the quality of our workmanship, but also the technology and study that has actually gone into the design of it. So what makes it special is that she has 4 engines, as well as 4 propellers. She has a speed of about 30 knots, as well as quite a big seating space for the personnel when transporting.
The vessel can only be lowered into the water by a specialised platform known as a synchro lift, situated at Cape Town Harbour's dry dock over 4 kilometres away. Getting it to the dry dock means an overland journey that all starts with getting the vessel loaded up and out of this shed. Weighing in at 313 tons, this abnormal load is going to be a mammoth task. With its slender hull and extreme length, balancing this on the trailer without doing damage to the ship's body will be a precise and delicate engineering skill. The responsibility for the design falls on the shoulders of this man.
I'm Christian Ituze, project engineer at LE Heavy Lift. Basically, it entails finding the most feasible solution for the client in terms of logistics, the route survey, what's physically possible to sort of navigate this route, and economically, what sort of solution can we provide them that sort of beats our competitors.
The Damon and ALE rigging teams have 2 days to coordinate this move. It's a distance of only 4 kilometers to their delivery point at the dry dock, but will require hours of effort.
A lot of planning. I mean, we've done this on numerous occasions, but each case is special. Even though we've moved about 4 of these FCS vessels, it's still quite a lot of considerations to take in. There's different conditions. Things change. The wind is quite a big factor. Availability of equipment. It doesn't always mean that we'll have the same equipment available to do the job. So it's always trying to balance everything before the job starts.
And it's up to the ALE heavy lift rigging team to carry out Christian's ambitious plan.
My name is Luke Stefan, and I'm the rigging supervisor for ALE Heavy Lift. It involves overseeing large lifts, large installations, and moves like this.
My name is Marco Khan, I'm a transport supervisor, overseeing loading, lashing, and sometimes operating.
The rigging team now face the challenging task of getting the 313-ton patrol vessel safely secured onto the trailer. First, a gantry crane moves 8 hydraulic jacks into position to lift the load off its supports to allow the trailer access. The boat's uneven distribution of weight means this is a delicate balancing act. The jack is then raised in intervals of 200 millimeters to allow the team to pack wooden blocks underneath the tracks for stability and support. It's slow and painstaking work that can take several hours, but vitally important for the safe movement of the load. The rigging team are ready to start jacking up the vessel. A gantry crane is used to move these 50-ton hydraulic jacks into place. While it gets this machinery from place to place quickly, it means the team has to keep alert with heavy machinery moving through the air. The big jacks are lowered into place, and now the team take it in turns to block and tackle or ratchet the jacks into their final, precise position.
I'm Jeremy White. I'm quality controller at Damon Shipyard, Cape Town. This moment in time, what they're doing is they're lifting these cradles here. They've made sure that it's secured. They will be jacking it up to a certain height so that their trailer can come underneath and then go down and secure it on there.
Once the jacks are in position, timber beams are used to offer cushioning for the load. They're supple, yet strong enough to absorb the weight of 300 tons, pushing down on the 4 jacks. But their positioning is critical. Any beam out of place could result in the load becoming unbalanced and potentially toppling over.
With all 4 jacks placed and supported, Luke raises the load. But the timber beams on one jack are out of place. The load has to come down back onto the cradles, and the timber has to be repositioned.
Depending on the size of the jack, the 60-ton jacks are quite fast on the tractor and extend, but the 500-ton jacks are a lot slower. I wouldn't say it was very stressed, but a lot of concentration. You know, you have to watch all 6 jacks all the time.
This time, Luke is happy. He raises the jacks and the balance holds. Next step for the ALE team is to bring in the trailer. But first, it's time for an inspection. And the reason is quite obvious.
You've got a water line. You'll see the differences in the colors of the vessel. The one color is what goes into the water, basically, and you've got a water line. So everything that goes below water, you cannot see anymore. So therefore, it's very important that those topics that go underwater are 100% correct. Once the vessel goes into the water, you cannot rectify it again unless you take it out the water. So it's very important to make sure that everything is as it should be before it goes to the water.
It's time for Jeremy's pre-launch inspection, making sure all valves are shut and docking plugs are in. Meanwhile, Mark prepares to bring in his self-propelled trailer. This piece of machinery is going to transport the patrol vessel from shipyard to dry dock.
The same as you driving, but you know that you don't have a steering wheel, you just have a remote.
If the payload was not positioned correctly on the trailer, that would mean that each axle is deviating from what we planned. If the payload had been a bit too forward, the wheels start spinning, the payload does not move. If they're too rear, you overload that group. So you need to get that just right. Place it in a good sweet spot.
With the onload complete, the crew head out to grab a few hours precious sleep before the big move. It's going to be a testing morning.
The main obstacles that we'll have tomorrow is that moving the vessel out of the shipyard. First getting her out of the shipyard, getting her onto the road, stopping the traffic. That can sometimes be a challenge, but luckily we have the traffic department supporting us there. And then once we actually get to the V&A waterfront, removing some of the traffic lights and bollards, if there are any that are in our way, and getting it into one of the lanes at the center lift. That can sometimes be a challenge.
It's 5 a.m. and the team are doing their final checks. There's no wind and no rain in sight. It's a good omen, but Jeremy's leaving nothing to chance. This load is going to be anything but easy.
So for this payload, the center of gravity of the boat's 4.6 meters above the ground. It weighs 304 tons, but each cradle that it sits on, that's about 4 tons. The trailer itself weighs in the region of 70 tons, so you get the whole combined gross combination mass, and basically we take that into account designing the solution. Challenge is obviously the length. You'll notice that the payload extends beyond the dimensions of the trailer, and the trailer can only turn a limited amount of degrees. So you look at coming out of that shed. Will you sort of have enough turn before you start hitting the embankments or pavements? When you go over any islands or pedestrian crossings, do you have enough stroke to keep sort of the payload balanced? Because once it goes beyond the center of the trailer, you're sort of out of a stability criteria that we use. So stuff like that. Can we make the turns? Do we have enough stroke? And is the road able to accommodate the amount of load introduction we're imposing it during the whole transport?
You can see it's going great from the stresses of things. The hard things here is just really making sure that everybody is doing what they're supposed to do when they must do it.
The most pressured part of the route for the tugboat rigging team is leaving the safety of the Damen shipyard. They need to carefully maneuver the 313-ton load down a small step and then execute a sharp right turn onto Duncan Road. Accompanied by traffic escorts, the load will then travel on the remote-controlled trailer down Duncan Road. The next obstacle is construction work at a traffic intersection belonging to the Ports Authority, where traffic lights and bollards need to be removed. The distance to the dry dock is only 4 kilometers, but our heavy load, traveling at walking speed, will only be allowed to cross the busy intersection if they arrive before 7 a.m.
We're waiting for the power to be disconnected, and then we're going to start moving out.
The traffic escorts are ready and waiting, and as strange as it might sound, it's time to get the ship on the road. But almost immediately, the team faced their first obstacle, getting over the step and then a sharp right turn into the road.
And with a length of 59 meters, they have to be very careful not to scrape the boat against the entrance of the shed.
Okay, transport's ready to go. Let's get the show on the road, boys. Back her up. Luke, remember those tracks? Yes, sir.
So the nose is going to go over the railway tracks. It's almost on 60 meters long, the vessel. So it's going to be very tight. We might have to do maybe 3 turns. Space is going to be pretty tight. So we're going to have to keep our eyes peeled more, especially going around corners and all of that. And a lot slower, maybe.
Here we go. Let's keep it peeled.
The load inches out of the shed. Mark has to keep right to avoid the railway tracks, but without making contact with the shed doors on his left.
What's your 20 on those doors?
The first attempt halts. The load won't make it out of the shed doors at this angle. They back it up.
Let's keep it going back. Let's keep it going back. What's your 20 on those doors? Oh, I need a 20 on that curb. I don't want to bottom out here. Mark, let's do that again.
Mark launches a second attempt.
What's your line, Mark? What's your line? Looking good. And let's hop there. Still not, Mark. Still not. One more attempt.
Again, the angle is too acute. This is costing the team valuable time. They have to reach the intersection before 7 a.m.
Okay, let's one more. We can do this, boys.
The only bad part about it is coming out of the workshop, turning. It's all regarding with communication. There's not good communication, you're not sure what can happen.
Looking good, Mark.
The third attempt works. The team are free to move on to reach their destination.
I always make double sure about that. It's better to take 5 minutes for checking than taking 5 years for explaining.
Transport that we're headed onto Duncan Road. We're looking good for destination. Keep an eye out for obstruction. Copy that.
Cape Town's roads are at a standstill, while many stop to look. It's not every day you see a boat moving on wheels, and the traffic cops have their hands full. Luckily, the wind stays away, and the balance is maintained.
Moving at walking pace, the vessel has to reach the traffic intersection by 7 a.m. Any later, and it'll have to wait several hours for traffic to die down. But that could mean losing its place in the parking bays at the dry dock.
My biggest thought would be ensuring that the boat arrives at the sinker lift safely, 1. And then 2, actually the spectatorship that the boat produces. Having people actually see vessels of this magnitude that has been produced by Darwin out on the road. That's quite a spectacular moment.
The ship makes slow but steady progress. Ahead, it has to get through a portion of private property that's under construction. It's going to be a tight squeeze through these gates and onto the intersection on the other side. Mark needs all the concentration he can summon. There's very little clearance for this enormous load to pilot through, and he's got to make it through before 7 a.m. when the traffic volume starts to build up.
Give me a 20 on the nose. You're good. You're good. Keep going. I need eyes on the starboard deck. Starboard deck. Slow your speed. Slow your speed. I've got little room here.
The vessel squeaks through. Next up, the final challenge, getting through an intersection. To get to this point has taken months of planning.
things change. Just to give an example, the previous FCS had a whole roundabout as you're approaching this, the sinker lift. That changed. So even though we had the same transport combination, but the route survey needed to be redone just to accommodate for these changes and see if the concept we provided is still feasible for the intended route.
Thanks to significant development in this harbour area, what used to be a dilapidated traffic circle is now an intersection with traffic lights. The patrol boat will need to pilot through on the diagonal to the dry dock entrance from the construction site opposite. And the team will need to ensure that traffic is brought to an absolute standstill while this happens. But the biggest concern is the traffic lights themselves. The vessel is so big, the roads agency will need to temporarily remove them to allow the load to pass through.
The team reach the intersection and discover that the traffic lights haven't been removed. They have to get through to the dry dock before 7 a.m. and are running out of time. If the space isn't cleared, they may be stuck on the wrong side of the road for hours. A team get to work to remove the traffic lights. They're on borrowed time as the traffic starts to build up behind them.
I don't know how long he's going to take. We're just waiting on those traffic lights. ETA? 5 minutes. In the meantime, let's make sure that gate at the dry dock is open. Just jump on it.
The team get the police go-ahead to cross the road. It's now a whole other challenge for Mark to get the patrol vessel into the dry dock.
Keep it straight. Keep it straight there.
With the traffic lights removed, the patrol vessel can proceed smoothly. But with backed-up traffic and very little margin for error, it's no easy passage for Mark and the team.
Watch that nose. I've got no eyes on that nose. Nose is fine. Over. My starboard side. Looking good. Over. Keep it coming. Keep it coming. Watch your line, Mark. Keep hearing. Eyes on starboard. How am I doing there? Got space. Over. Watch your port side. Watch your port side.
But his experience pays off, and the patrol vessel is through the last of its obstacles and into the dry dock.
Through, Mark. You're through. Nice job.
So what's going to happen now, we'll align it to the center line of these bogies. We'll jack it up to remove our trailer. Then these bogies will slide underneath the payload. We'll load it onto the cradles and then wish it off. Then they'll start the whole process of commissioning it and launching it now.
Now that the team have reached their destination, it's time to ready the ship for launch. The ALE team will now jack down the vessel onto supports, remove the self-propelled trailer, and then jack the vessel onto movable supports called bogies. These bogies will then mount onto a transfer carriage, and the entire load will be pushed by a tractor onto a motorized synchrolift platform to eventually be lowered into the water.
Quite tired at this point for the team and I, having worked some late nights and early mornings getting boats prepared and launched. But at the end of the day, really happy that we launched the boats without any incidents, and it also frees up the space within the yard now for future projects. So very happy.
Our oceans need safekeeping for obvious reasons, and this patrol vessel is key to that role. It will protect our waters from overfishing and get people from place to place, ensuring our seas remain sustainable, both environmentally and economically.
It's easy to marvel at the size of these loads, but the engineering challenges at the heart of their transportation are just as impressive.
Overcoming all these challenges takes dedication and commitment from designers, engineers and welders, from surveyors, project managers and riggers, from the traffic officers and from the drivers. These are the men and women who pull out all the stops to ensure our lives are better. This is the world of abnormal load.
Ever thought about what a world with no power would look like? Cities that blacken at night. Traffic that builds up with no end. No phones, laptops, cameras, fridges, no television sets.
Electricity has transformed our lives in ways few other technologies have. And for big industry, the way this resource is utilised is the difference between keeping the wheels turning and having them fall off.
The Kriel Power Station in Mpumalanga Province, South Africa. One of 5 coal-fired power stations in the area, here because of their proximity to the coal fields of the region. The process of extracting power from coal isn't new. It's a methodology that's over 100 years old. The coal is crushed and burnt, and this heat creates steam. The steam then turns a turbine that generates electricity. And it's inside this generator that our next load plays a vital role.
My name's Lee Dawes. I'm the CEO and regional leader for GE Steam Power in Africa. So GE is a large American multinational company, and here in South Africa, we've built around 80% of Eskom's power stations, especially around rotating equipment, generators, turbines, and that type of stuff. So the load today is a generator midsection for Kriel Power Station. The stator is part of the generator, and the generator converts the rotating energy from the steam turbine into electricity. And it's there to basically connect the power station to the grid.
Weighing at just over 200 tons, the stator core is at the very heart of electricity generation. Sitting over 8 meters in length and 4 meters wide, it's encased in a durable steel structure to prevent damage. But its impregnable appearance shouldn't obscure the sensitivity of its copper coils and finely tuned wiring. This is a fragile load that bears great responsibility on its shoulders.
This stator core isn't just any old piece of machinery. It plays a vital role in the functioning of the country. And its journey here has been long and arduous.
The stator, the midsection, started off its life in the manufacturing shops in the UK.
Manufactured in Stafford in England, the stator core was shipped to Antwerp in Belgium and then loaded onto a container ship for the long journey to Richards Bay, South Africa. It was then transported to Matla Power Station to be stored in power supplier Eskom's strategic bunker.
So not only is this type of equipment extremely expensive, extremely sensitive, even on the journey we monitor humidity, we monitor electrical conductivity. This is an electrical component. It's going to have 13,000 volts running through it, and it's going to be used to power for the next 20 years. So any damage along the way is obviously a big capital expenditure on the unit. But I think more importantly, any damage along the way would delay the station from coming back on. And right now, South Africa really needs the power, and this is a key part of it.
To get this load on the road and safely installed, GE has called in the heavy lifters, both literally and figuratively.
Hi, my name is Eric. I'm an abnormal multi-axle driver for the ALE heavy lift. It's probably the best job in the world, being the biggest thing on the road, you know. Everybody's got to get off your road. It's a way of life, I would say.
I'm Frans van der Jager. I'm an abnormal driver for ALE heavy lift in South Africa. It's challenging. Every load's a challenge. Every day you learn new things.
The stator's journey is going to need more than one driver, and Eric and Francois form part of a team.
My name is Vivian Young. I work for ALE Heavy Lift as a project manager. I love being given a challenge and having a discussion with the client, seeing and knowing what his end goal is, and to use what we have, the equipment, the teams that we have, the engineering, to use all that to put a plan together and make sure that that plan runs smoothly.
The strategic bunker at Matla Power Station is the origin of today's journey, but the significance for the nation of what goes on in there is far too sensitive to be filmed. So the team will load up the stator behind closed doors.
Our weight is a big factor, you know, and you've got to have a specialized trailer to be able to spread the weight, because if it's all pressing down on 6 or 7 axles, you are going to break the road.
Loading up something as delicate as the stator core requires absolute adherence to safety principles. The entire stator is attached to a 4 PLS hydraulic lift that can take a combined 800 tons of weight. The lift raises the stator and the 30-wheeler Goldhofer trailer is reversed in. The stator is then lowered through the hydraulics into position where it's attached with specially designed insulated chains. No matter the procedure, the risks of suspending a cargo this precious off the ground are high. As the shadows start to lengthen, the team finally make it out the gates of Matla Power Station.
The clouds that are building up, it makes me apprehensive. The weather plays a very big role. There must be absolutely no rain for the transport. The stator core cannot get wet because it's almost impossible to clean it, and if there's a little bit of rust on it, then we cannot use it.
Keep coming, Francois. Keep coming. Backing up. Keep your eyes on that traffic circle.
It's just outside these gates where the team faces its first logistical challenge.
Curve is looking good. Keep coming. Keep coming.
The one truck is not enough to pull that load. On a level load, yes, I can do it, but downhill and uphill, I won't be able to pull it up or break it when going down, so I need this assistance from Eric at the back.
It's a push-pull combination, what we call a push-pull. We'll have a Volvo 610 truck in the front, and then you have a ballast truck at the back. The reason it's ballast is just to help give it traction and to help with actually moving this item being so heavy correctly and safely.
What can go wrong is you can hurt a person because you actually can't see the hook in front of you, and you got someone showing you a forward back or a small touch forward, a small touch back.
Because of the space constraints inside the power station, the team have had to reverse the load out. And the only remaining available space for the load to back into is this turning circle just outside the gates.
It's going to be a tight squeeze to position the main cab and trailer so that the back cab can connect up. But with thunderclouds forming in the distance, it's a process that needs to happen quickly.
The potential risks with hooking up the ballast truck, we're talking about risks of like pinching points. And pinching point is normally where you would have two items coming together, locking together.
This point is right here. Keep your line on those trees. Come. Looking good. Let's throttle.
It has happened before. You can actually jam someone's finger, and if you can think about it, it's 610 horses are pushing forward, steel against steel. Your finger's going to come off second base.
Get it there. Come.
Then there's the crushing, which is even more severe, where somebody's not noticing when the actual truck is connecting to the rod, and they might be in between, and then they can be crushed.
Coming. Locked in. Good job.
The cabs connect up and are locked into place through the specialized connector. It's time for the load to depart. The stator's short 7-kilometer journey faces numerous obstacles. After the cab has been connected, it then faces the threat of low-hanging, high-voltage power lines. Then, once they're through this obstacle, the load has to navigate backed-up traffic from coal trucks delivering their loads to Creel Power Station. And then, a 90-degree turn presents the last tricky maneuver for the two cabs to overcome. It's going to take the utmost concentration for our drivers to ensure the successful delivery of this very important load. The team at ALE Heavy Lift are in the middle of transporting a vital stator core from Matla to Creel Power Station. And with the omnipresent threat of building thunderclouds, it's a load that can ill afford any mishaps.
One of the things is that a plan never runs smoothly. There's always something, especially in transport and especially in abnormal load engineering, there's always something that you don't foresee. There must be absolutely no rain for the transport. The transport, we're looking at taking about an hour and a half. So being in Mpumalanga, we have thunderstorms, so you have to take that in consideration because thunderstorms, clouds build up very, very quickly. With the clouds building up, I'm feeling apprehensive about what might happen because should the rain fall, the disaster is going to happen. So I'm anxious at the moment, very anxious.
But rain is not the only thing the team have to worry about. Power lines represent some of the greatest challenges to abnormal loads. These loads are often constructed from highly conductive materials like steel, and the state of core is no different. Although the clearance on these lines looks good, electricity can jump from line to load. And when you're transporting a 200-ton network of copper cabling, damage from something like this could prove calamitous, not just for the operation, but for the country as a whole.
The risks that are on this road is looking at power lines. We have two 400 kVA power lines and one 220 kVA power line which crosses the road.
The dangers of power lines, especially if you're transporting a steel structure, is a power can arc, it can jump.
It would, what we call fry the stator core. It actually render it completely useless. That will be an absolute disaster for both for us and for our client.
The dangers of being electrocuted is there. It's a big possibility.
Yo, what a day. What a day.
We cleared that little bridge, that pressure is intense, but you got to be able to deal with it to get the job done.
Once you've passed them, it's quite a relief because you know there's no extra work, your trailer is still on the right height. So it's quite nice to pass them.
The team navigates the low-hanging power lines without too much discomfort. But ahead lies the most difficult challenge for these drivers.
Once we're through the lines, we feel that we've accomplished quite a bit, but there's still quite a lot ahead for us. The next obstacle is the coal trucks, which are offloading coal to the Creel power station.
Not only do the waiting trucks present a hazard in how they line up, but an even greater risk lies in what they carry. The dust that's spilt from these enormous container trucks makes tarred inclines precipitously smooth. And smoothness means the tyres on our loads have far less grip.
I have to send through our front escort up ahead with a flagman, make sure that he's standing in position, making sure that they are not blocking our way.
We've got a small issue happening here up at top here with these coal trucks. They just be positioning themselves to get out of your way.
Yeah, because you don't want to pull away on that uphill.
Copy that.
Our front escorts had to try and move them because they were standing on an uphill. And with these loads, you can't stop on the hill. The challenge is to get them out of the way fast enough for us to carry on. So we don't come to a stop on the hill because then we will endanger everyone around us.
Our load is 5 of these guys.
Yep. 5 interlinked tippers.
You need to look at your revs, you need to look at your speed and think for everybody. You cannot go too far to the left because there's a lot of holes next to the road. Once they damage the tires, the whole trailer can go down.
The stalling up the hill there, I definitely noticed because I could see that they were going slower and slower, and it's very important that they keep the momentum, especially with this type of load and this heavy 202-ton stator core.
The load speed diminishes as the first cab gears down. But has their speed dropped too low?
If they don't keep their momentum and it slides backwards, absolute disaster will happen. It will jackknife and might even throw off the stator core.
Trying to avoid a stall, Eric opens the throttle to give Francois as much power as possible.
As we're going up the hill, we started spinning. I geared down, but that is not ideal in that situation because once you start losing traction, it's as if someone adds a 50-ton onto the trailer. Everything inside you also screams to mash down the pedal to get this thing up the road. But as soon as you do that, you're going to only make the problem worse.
Eric's careful injection of power has provided enough traction to keep the load going. Slowly but surely, it makes its way up the gradual slope.
At this point, over that hill and past the coal trucks, I'm absolutely over the moon because most of the main dangers is behind us.
Once we were out there, it was nice. It's a relief. Now you've got an open road in front of you.
It's almost home base for the team. Their last challenge, a sharp right turn into the front entrance of Creel Power Station.
Sharp corners create headaches for abnormal load drivers. Not only are the turning circles much wider on these vehicles, but when you've got more than one cab coupled to a load, there has to be careful consideration of power and balance. Open communication between the two teams is as important as the nerves of steel it takes to get these loads from A to B.
200 meters, turn right.
Copy, copy. I'm off the forward, volume.
We had to stop the public transport quite far ahead of the actual turn and before the turn, so that we could actually have enough space for the truck to make the turn.
Eric looked at the left for me because I cannot, if I turn right, I cannot see the left of my trailer. And the back of the trailer is coming out quite a lot, so you have to take your turn right not to damage anything.
Potential risks there is that should our trailer run onto the sidewalk and should enough tires lose air, then of course you don't have the traction on the load, and the potential risk there is that, again, the load could move to that side, gain momentum and actually just roll off. Very, very important that the main driver in front actually communicates and has communication with the ballast truck at the back.
I can take my turn wrong, then we have to reverse. It's quite difficult to reverse once he's hooked up at the back.
We could have this, hands off, ladies, we missed the board.
was not that easy to take that turn, but we managed to make it.
Thank you, sir.
The gates of Creel Power Station beckon, and ahead of the approaching rain, the load is home.
We did it safely. There's no injuries, no broken equipment. Everything is 100%, and it's a big relief. That is probably our first night that you actually sleep well.
They give us a deadline, and to do it before the deadline, it's a great feeling. The customer is happy, that's the main thing.
Once we go through those security gates at Creel Power Station, it's a feeling of relief that overwhelms me. And I'm absolutely proud with the team and how they've accomplished what we've planned and put out there to do. So achieving a project, making a success of the project is actually like seeing your child walk for the very first time.
I'm really proud of all the teams on these heavy loads and moving these great products around the continent. I really want to thank them for everything they do for us, and they're doing a great job.
While coal will one day fall away as we move towards cleaner sources of energy, components like the stator core will always be there to transform that energy into electricity. And as we know, electricity is a resource us humans shouldn't take for granted.
Putting power to work was the long-term vision of Turnkey Modular, a firm looking to change the way electricity is delivered to big industry.
I'm Warwick Jackson. I'm the CEO of Turnkey Modular, a company derived from the Efficient Engineering group of companies. So essentially, we put together modular solutions. We take industry ideas, package them in large steel containers, and deploy them to site fully tested and commissioned. Our modular buildings are generally large structures that, as a basic rule, house electrical equipment, normally very specialized electrical equipment. We will build a building custom-made for that particular project, install all the equipment, test it, commission it, and take the entire structure to the site that it's ultimately used at. As opposed to building a building on one of those hostile sites and systematically bringing each of the components, installing them, trying to test them, and commission a plant in a remote area. Fundamentally, the system de-risks a project.
Today's load is the very picture of modularity at its best. The E-House is a customized, pre-assembled and pre-tested substation, providing electricity for a variety of voltage and power requirements. But at 22 meters long, 9 meters wide, and a total weight of 80 tons, getting it from A to B is going to be a gargantuan task, especially when B is over 120 kilometers away.
What we're loading today is a substation that is going to Sasol Secunda. It's part of 8 units that are being delivered. This is the second of the main switch rooms.
This particular substation is really the heart of this particular portion of the plant. It will receive the distribution voltage from the area, so it will take 11,000 volts in, and it will switch it into various different transformers. We've spent the last 6 months building this particular project. This building here has been under fabrication for probably 4 of those 6 months. We have a project deadline of tomorrow to deliver it, and it is critical that we live up to Sasol's requirements. They run a multi-billion-dollar project, and it is critical that we fall exactly into line of where we need to.
With this much time given over to planning the installation of the E-House, you'd be forgiven for thinking it would be a simple operation. But in the world of abnormal loads, you take nothing for granted.
Moving 80 tons, there are a number of factors that come into play. These buildings are designed that they're hydraulically lifted off the transporter. So we were to land on a platform and hydraulically lift it off with a truck driving out of the site. Towards the end of last week, we had done our final site survey of the platform that this particular unit is arriving on, and it became apparent that we were not going to be able to drive on and off the platform as we had originally planned.
From its start point at Turnkey Modular, the e-house needs to arrive at its destination in the correct orientation, which means the truck reversing in, loading up, and heading out. But because the truck can no longer offload and drive through, it's going to need to reverse its load in, like so. But that leaves us with a problem. That leaves the e-house in the incorrect orientation. So the guys at Turnkey Modular are going to have to find a way to load up back to front.
It's a one-off, so this is the first time we've had to do a reverse roll.
Darren was through on site yesterday. We, as you know, under some very tight constraints here, there's no getting around those times. We're not going to miss this. Cecil's our most important customer, so we need to make sure.
We had to make a decision this morning, how were we going to turn a north load to a south load on a truck? One of our options is to reverse a truck all the way through the back of the building. We have various other items being fabricated currently in the facility, and there is really, really tight tolerances to allow this trailer into that particular space. So we'll have to bring it the full length, almost 100 meters down the factory, to meet the building and allow ourselves to reverse under it, lower the building, and then reverse the entire structure out of the building as opposed to driving it forwards out of the building. We may not be able to get the truck through the confines of the back of the building. We would look then to use our cranes to suspend the building or lift the building. We'd move the building to one side of the facility. We then could drive the truck in through the front, and then we would move the building back over the truck and lower it.
If we cannot reverse the truck in and we have to go to cranes, then we're looking at a very high-risk situation, you know, because we have to take jacks out and you've got a unit, 85 tons, 2.2 meters in the air, right, with people having to go underneath. It's very high risk.
The hydraulic system is definitely what we'd want to use.
Getting the vehicle in through the rear means navigating a 24-wheel trailer and cab along a narrow alleyway and then reversing in through the back door. An angle so acute, it takes years of experience and nerves of steel to pull it off. Luckily, they've got just the man for the job.
My name is Enoch. I'm working for Transvaal Heavy Transport for 42 years. I'm starting from 1977. I was 26 years old. I'm driving the big truck until now. How do you think I'm going to say? By saying that I make it can come on a capi the camo. Karan Castle Horn can a capi the camo. Plekela Inyan. Kabubitir, but the camo cap. Camera, but the Buddha space, Kitokona, or the camera.
Enoch is ready to give it a go. Ahead of his approach, the workshop is being cleared to give him enough room to maneuver into position.
The truck driver has come in this morning. He feels he can do this option of reversing in. He's a very confident driver. We've used him a lot of times, so he does know his jobs. The nagging worry is if he can't, then we go to the high-risk situation, which is putting a lot of stress on all of us at this point in time.
Using every bit of experience, Enoch pilots the 30-meter-long trailer in through the door backwards. He's got a team on the ground guiding him, but he's got just centimeters to spare. Enoch has done it. The truck is through the impossible opening, and the vehicle can now back up to the e-house.
There's massive relief that our first option has actually worked. This really comes down to the skill of the driver.
Having successfully maneuvered the 24-wheeler truck and cab through the back door, Enoch and the team now face the intricate task of getting the e-house bedded onto the trailer. First, the 8 hydraulic jacks are fixed into position to lift the load off its supports. The central columns will then be removed and the truck will be reversed under the e-house. The remaining columns are then removed. The hydraulic jacks, taking all 80 tons of weight, will lower the e-house to within a comfortable distance for the timber supports to be placed. Once these are in position, the full weight of the e-house will be lowered onto the trailer. It's a painstaking process that requires every step to be executed with ruthless precision.
But when's anything that simple? The e-house's weight isn't evenly distributed, so they can't simply reverse a trailer straight down the middle. They have to get the weighting just right to ensure that this 9-meter wide load is evenly balanced. Critical for the long journey to Secunda.
These particular projects do come down to time. The expression time is money is very relevant in this case. When you're running projects with thousands of people on site, the sooner you finish, the sooner you come online, the sooner you produce revenue.
Turnkey Modular in Germiston have to deliver an 80-ton e-house to site in Secunda, over 120 kilometers away. And each part of the process is critical to stick to the project timings. The team need the load to be correctly balanced so that the police escort can safely guide the e-house through the busy streets of southeastern Johannesburg. Eventually, the team have the truck in position. The engineers are happy, and the truck is ready to head out.
There's not a single load that we're not anxious about. So these are mega loads. They have potential to cause a large amount of disruption in the process of getting them to site. We are risking all our eggs in one single basket.
My name is Jacobus Jansen van Rensburg. I'm working for Transvaal Heavy Transport. This load is abnormal. Anything above 2.6 meter is abnormal where you come from permits and upwards escorting. From 4.8 meter you go to traffic escort. So this load is 9 meters. Well, for the actual load, it fits over the whole road. Traffic escort is needed for this specific load to travel from Elandfontein to Secunda to make sure for safety that the public is aware of the load that's coming in.
Loads like the e-house create a major disturbance for road users, mostly because of their massive width that take up both lanes of traffic. To minimize the disturbance on these urban roads in built-up environments, the traffic escort ensures that loads travel in convoy. But it's not just other road users that this load will have to negotiate.
A route survey has been done before we even apply for permits, so the route survey needs to be done and checked and measure every wire, every board, everything has been measured and to make sure this load travels safely.
The most pressured part of the route for the e-house team is leaving the busy urban environment of the southeastern Johannesburg metropolitan region. And with the load now part of a convoy, the route out of Rietfontein becomes more complex. The 3 loads will travel down North Reef Road, negotiating oncoming traffic, and into Yoldwyn Road, where the first load will peel off towards their destination. As the taller and wider load, the e-house will have to negotiate a terrifying obstruction here with a low-hanging power line. From there, the second load will separate and the e-house will proceed with a reduced traffic convoy towards Atlas Road, where they'll have to negotiate a series of overhanging traffic lights. Once through these obstacles, there's some breathing room along the M43 before the final challenge, the busy intersection between Heidelberg and Elsburg roads, where they'll face busy oncoming traffic.
Ha o tsamaya ka lori e kgolo ga kana, o tlamehile o check-e power line gore e phame ga kae, o tla kgona go feta. And le dikoloi ha di tla ka pele o shebe gore koloi e eme kapa e tsamaya kae, le wena o shebe ka lefting, then a tsamaya ka lefting o kgone feta.
With their blue light convoy ahead and behind, the loads set off.
Okay, ja boss.
Yeah, you're very nervous until the load is on site, but you're proud. To get something done like this is not an easy job. It works on your nerves for sure.
Ha ke tlo tsamaya ka mo tseleng, ke tlo sheba traffic gore na koloi ena e tsamaya kae, nna ke tsamaya kae, and ke tlamehile ke shebe gore na e tla kgona go feta mona koloi ena. Ha e sa kgone go feta go tlamehile ke eme gore koloi e kgone go feta, ke kgone feta ka yona.
With the full traffic escort successfully guiding the convoy, the going is relatively simple. But as the first load peels off, it takes a contingent of escort vehicles with them. With numbers reduced, stopping traffic is going to get harder and harder. And that's not all that could go wrong.
From here through up to Nigel is the most difficult part. From here, traffic, robots, overhead boards, to navigate through them is the most difficult part. When you get to open roads, it's easier.
Up ahead, the team's first major obstacle, a low-hanging power line. The clearance looks good, but the size of the load means there are multiple variables. Snagging a cable could spell disaster for the e-house's finely tuned electrical components.
Ik zal het mooie deel gaan bij die draad, Pida.
Als het stuk zit, is niet die punt van mijn stok wat gevallen. Je behoort om hier te komen, want ik heb om clearance gezet van 20 opposite. So je zal hier komen. Check net aan de right-hand side, want het is een beetje warm.
Oké, ik zal zo maken. Ja, ik heb het ook gezegd, Paula, ik had zo Joe, zo van jij twaar.
You do the route survey, but still, when you go afterwards, it can happen that a wire can be bumped and then it's lower on the stage you come through there because this route survey has been done a few weeks before.
The camber on this road slopes downwards, right underneath the power lines, which means that the standard size vehicle with its measurement stick has passed underneath quite comfortably. But the extended length of the trailer, combined with the extreme weight of the load, have raised the cab and e-house higher slightly. And with an 11 kVA line now hooked on top of the e-house, the team will need the utmost care to prevent any damage to the sensitive electrical equipment inside. With the traffic backing up in all directions, the team contemplate their choices. It's just millimeters that separate the load from freedom. Fortunately, the experienced team from THT come prepared. With each line raised individually, Enoch has to inch forward to get underneath them. It's painstaking work, with the ever-present danger of the current jumping from cable to load.
With the truck safely underneath the lines, the load proceeds onto the busy Atlas Road.
Go fihla letswalo gampe go tlamele ke chebe gore ka mona le ka mona go sekolo le ka mona go sekolo ke tla kgona feta na ke feta a ke kene fela le robotong ke sa sheba gore na gona koloi e tlang ka mo le ka mo le ka pela ka na ke kgone feta.
And here, the biggest danger is not only the traffic, but the overhanging traffic lights.
Going counterflow means holding back the oncoming traffic so that the load can weave around obstructions. It's a stressful operation, and hostility from other road users means the pressure is on to safely steer around the multiple dangers of signage and overhanging traffic lights that could snag and cause damage to the e-house.
The load squeaks past the traffic lights, and they're through.
But the team's challenges are far from over. Up ahead, they'll have to make a 90-degree counterflow turn onto the busy Heidelberg Road, their last hurdle before they hit the open highway. It's a tough ask for the reduced escort team, who need to leapfrog between obstacles and arrive ahead of the load to prevent traffic building up. If it does build up too much, the load won't be able to proceed, resulting in total gridlock and delays that could hamper the team reaching their next milestone.
The biggest consideration is the public. They're impatient. They just want to pass through. They don't think about any safety on the road.
The load is through the intersection, and the relief is palpable. Country roads present a far easier journey for the e-house team. With their traffic escorts still in tow, the team will make its way past the old gold mining town of Nigel, through farmlands and onto the town of Secunda, where the load will be delivered to the new plant site.
While the site now resembles little more than a construction yard, it will soon be a brand new coal-to-liquid refinery in Secunda. And it's at this refinery where the e-house will be offloaded, now in its correct orientation, ready to be that vital conduit between the power grid and the various utilities power needs.
The e-house will be offloaded in the same way it was onloaded. But now the team will have to reverse into position first, with the hydraulic jacks loaded in by crane to take the load off the trailer.
When you deliver a load to site, you feel proud, you're happy, your customer has been served, and it feels good.
When you get it right, it leaves you with such a sense of pride of the team we have and how we continue to break convention. We're a firm who like to believe that convention is not something we comply to.
This e-house is the next generation for electricity supply. It allows an effective and efficient distribution of power for construction and the day-to-day running of big projects like oil refineries, chemical plants, and mining operations. And none of it would be possible without a world of dedicated, skilled, and persevering people who keep the wheels of industry turning to make the lives of people like you and I that much easier.
This is a world where everything is on the line, where delivery is non-negotiable, where going the extra mile can often mean an extra 10. This is the world of abnormal load.
The wheel, one of humanity's single greatest breakthroughs. For 10,000 years, this simple tool has redefined what's possible for human beings to achieve. It's led to almost every conceivable industry that serves our needs today. For anything that needs to physically move, you can put money on it that a wheel will be involved somewhere along the line.
But what if those wheels can't move by themselves? What happens if specialist vehicles need to change location but can't be piloted there? Well, that's when you call in the experts, the men and women of abnormal load.
Hi, my name is Eddie van Heerden. I am a truck driver and I started a transport company on my own in October 1983, and we grew the business up until where it is now with abnormal loads. The load that we have to move today is a mobile compactor. It's a very rare piece of equipment and specialized in many different ways.
The Rapid Impact Compactor, a 9-ton hydraulic hammer attached to a 45-ton excavator on tracks. The hammer is used on construction sites to increase the load-bearing capacity of soils. It drops between 50 and 60 times a minute, compacting the soil, solidifying loose and unstable ground so that it can carry the weight of foundations for big structures.
In Johannesburg's northern suburbs, large-scale residential developments have meant that machinery like the compactor is in high demand. And it's people like Van Heerden's who are relied on to get them from place to place.
A machine weighing 70 tons on a tar road, you can imagine what it does without anything in between. It's a residential area, so we've got to make as less as possible impact on the roads, the gardens.
Unloading this 70-ton mega mover presents some challenges. The compactor's tracks can damage the tarred surface of the road, but the specialized low-bed hydraulic trailer can't traverse the muddy surface of the construction yard. In order to get the compactor loaded, it will be driven out through the front gates of the yard and then be supported by a moving set of rubber tires that will cushion its immense weight. Once onto the trailer, this weight will be widely distributed through the trailer's wheels.
Moving space is very limited. The most important factor with the abnormality is definitely the height. In the municipal areas, sometimes you get electric and telephone cables that are very low, so those are the things we got to consider. The moment it leaves the actual site where it did the compaction, we put like old truck tires underneath the tracks of the machine to not damage any of the paving or pieces of tar or the curbs or anything involved where the machine has to travel. We put blocks to minimize the incline from the ground level to the level where the machine stands on top of the trailer. You've got to take it very slowly and evenly, not to damage your differentials or your gearboxes or your tires.
Vaitjie gaan reguit. Vaitjie gaan reguit.
With the compactor on board and balanced, it's time to take stock of the journey. Getting out of the built-up area of Melrose will take a cool head and immense skill. Firstly, Eddie will need to reverse the trailer up 3rd Avenue and back into the busy suburban Central Avenue. From there, he'll need to negotiate the narrow pass of a traffic circle before turning onto the busy Rivonia Road and then onto Corlett Drive. Oncoming traffic and tight angles make this a particularly tricky intersection to navigate. From there, the route opens up, as Eddie will make his way along back roads through Edenvale and Boksburg. Arriving in Springs, he'll navigate to the Van Heerden's headquarters, where the compactor will be stored. Getting in through the narrow gates will present Eddie with his next significant challenge, with just centimetres to spare on either side. It's a grueling 3-hour journey that's going to need concentration and stamina to deliver.
Okay, Faitjie, ons is op pad, hoor.
The biggest test is to get out of a very narrow road that we can only go in forward and exit in reverse.
With a successful reverse out of 3rd Avenue, the load proceeds up Central Avenue. Up ahead, the first major obstacle, a busy intersection.
Turning circles in built-up environments presents a unique challenge for abnormal load drivers. Getting 30 metres of cab and trailer around a sharp 90-degree bend is difficult at the best of times. Throw in obstructions like signage, traffic lights and other road users, and the whole task becomes that much more tricky and stressful. Getting stuck at a major intersection not only holds up the traffic, but it severely tests the patience of other drivers.
I'm always scared that we do warn traffic and other people that there's an abnormal load coming, but a lot of drivers does not always focus.
Laat die karre by jou verbygaan, Faitjie. Laat die karre by jou verbygaan, asseblief.
It was a little bit nerve-wracking because there was a lot of guys that did not focus on the abnormal load. They're busy with what they are busy with when they drive their own car and check themselves, but they don't check for you.
The busy intersection at the corner of Rivonia and Central Avenue awaits. Eddie takes the truck into oncoming traffic to make his turn, and a private security vehicle is suddenly caught coming head-on.
Stoot terug, Faitjie, en kom in die linkerbaan.
There's a lot of cars parked on the sides and there's no way and place where the cars can go. So you have to make sure you block the traffic. Otherwise, you damage the curbs, you damage your truck, your tires, and you jam the traffic as well.
The security vehicle and 2 pedestrians are caught in a turning circle. With nowhere to move, this could be make or break for the load.
It was nerve-wracking.
Eddie's pinpoint driving gets the front wheels through the turn.
We were relieved to get through that exit, which is very small.
Driving a big load on the open road has its perks. To have freedom of movement and the respect of other road users around you is something these drivers live for. But at the end of this journey lies Eddie's last significant challenge.
Here on the outskirts of the industrial town of Springs lies Van Heerden's transport. The compactor will be stored here until it's needed again. But this narrow gate represents Eddie's last remaining challenge.
You need maybe a 3 or a 4 meter maneuvering space for your tractor to be able to move your trailer's wheels to miss the gate on the left-hand side.
We've all been on a seesaw at some point, right? Well, a seesaw is based on one of the simplest machines known to man, the lever. A lever's made up of a beam of some kind and a fulcrum or pivot point. Now with a seesaw, that pivot point is right in the middle. So when I push down a certain distance on this side, this end over here moves the exact same distance, just in the opposite direction. But if I move my pivot point along the beam, now when I push down over here, this end still moves in the opposite direction, but it moves much further than what I'm putting in over here. And that's the challenge that Eddie faces with his truck, where a small move near the cab results in a large move at the end of the trailer, which is why abnormal load drivers need to be so skilled, especially when operating in confined conditions.
Eddie makes his approach towards the gates. Any miscalculation could leave the truck and its load stranded.
Maar nie net vir my linker voorwiel hier op hierdie kant hoor.
Eddie is through with just centimeters to spare on each side. It's a huge sigh of relief for the whole team, with just the offload to go.
With the storage yard's hard soil, the team are able to simply reverse the compactor off the trailer. For Eddie and his team, it's a job well done.
Every time you offload, then you're very relieved that everything went well and you offloaded it and all the challenges were met. But the moment you delivered that load, you're back looking for another one to do more tricky and more abnormal, wider or more heavier. So every time you offload, you're glad, but then you look for the challenge again the next time.
Construction is an industry we can all understand needs large equipment moved from place to place. But what about other industries? Entertainment, for example. But what kind of big load needs to be moved about here?
I'm Philip Nell of Performance Dynamics in SA Monster Trucks. They call me the guy with the big toys. I started about 16, 17 years back. After Performance Dynamics, we decided just to build them something bigger and meaner, what nobody got. And then we start building our own monster truck. From there, they're starting to become a business like everybody knows as SA Monster Trucks. And it's never big enough. We always strive to go bigger, meaner, and something different. And trust me, children go ballistic about this.
We're on the outskirts of Tshwane, South Africa's capital city and home to the Swartkops Raceway. And it's here where South Africa's 4x4 motor show is taking place, where two of Philip's monster trucks are due to make an appearance. For the audience attending this show, taking a ride in a monster truck is an absolute highlight.
We do shows, we do car crashes, very mean jumps, flipping, rollovers, another adrenaline entertainment for the clients. It's all the time on edge, and that's what the people like.
Wandering through Philip's workshop's like being in a playground for an engineering mind. Every inch of this mechanical artist's studio is taken up by vehicles in some form or another. And it's exactly that that gives Philip his first big challenge, navigating his custom-built trailer out of the yard so he can load up the two giant trucks.
Getting out of the yard is a trick. When it's a very close area, we have to turn to get a trailer when it's a very long trailer, and then to get it on the road.
It's a pretty extreme angle for any driver to negotiate, plus the added pressure of cars passing down this suburban slipway.
It's nerve-wracking, but you have to keep your concentration very wide. So it's not just in front driving. You have to check your mirrors all the time.
Philip is confident, but any traffic jam can slow him down. With busy Friday afternoon traffic building up, it's imperative he's not held up at any point. It's tight, but the wheels sneak through, and Philip's free to get into the adjacent parking lot where he'll load up the two monster trucks.
At least that's a relief first. Got it on the road, we're ready, moving on.
To avoid any mishaps, the 6-ton Goliath will need to align its considerably sized wheels against the back of the trailer. A high-powered winch, in partnership with the power of the V12 engine, will guide the vehicle up the ramp and onto its resting place. Because of the maximum road safety width of the trailer, centimeters can be critical. So it's going to take a feat of concentration from both driver Pete and Philip and his team to guide this monster to safety.
Ek is Pieter Beer. Ek is 'n ou vriend van Philip. So 13 jaar wat ek en hy al vriende is. Ek is so 8 jaar saam met hom in die monstertrokke bedoenig. Dit is nogal 'n hele ervaring. Want as jy opgaan teen die ramps, en ek vir jou beloof, jy sien net die blou lig.
My role in the monster truck, especially when we load, is to make sure that the truck goes straight into the trailer and to make sure that the truck is tightened properly.
With time ticking, Goliath, the first vehicle, is lined up. The winch is attached and the team get ready to load.
The loaded truck is always a risk of pulling the vehicle skew. So if you just go a bit too much, you can flip it over.
Ja, Piet, jy ry, moenie ry nie. Wow. Jy moenie ry nie, jy moet net guide. Niks throttle nie, net idle. Gaan maar weer terug. Start maar weer.
Goliath stalls and won't start again.
Ag nee, hy's in park.
Delays are costing the team precious time as the busy Friday afternoon traffic behind them starts to build up.
You know, Murphy's Law is always something can happen. So you have to work out your time delay. You're allowed to move between 6 and 6 o'clock. Then it's dark, you're not allowed to be on a ride. Then you have to pull off and sleep over and go in the next morning.
The mechanical team is on the scene and have a solution.
Nalatigheid, die batteryterminaal was nie vas genoeg gewees nie.
Pete takes another crack at getting Goliath up the ramp and onto the trailer.
Piet, die kant toe. Pietie, net so. Kom, vat weg uit toe. Kom, move uit die pad uit. Kom. Kom so, na my toe. Kijk, kom. Liep hom.
Pete is up and the second truck follows suit. With a lesser height and a less volatile transmission, it's an easier task getting it loaded up and strapped in.
With Friday afternoon traffic starting to build up on Sefako Makhato Drive, the team need to get a shift on to deliver the load on time. But it's a journey that's likely to pitch up a few curveballs.
Philip Nell and his team are getting ready to transport his 2 monster trucks to Swartkops Raceway in time for them to feature at the annual 4x4 outdoor show. And with the rush hour traffic starting to build up on Tshwane's main roads, it's going to be a journey with some pressure. The monster truck cavalcade only has 23 kilometers to travel, but will face numerous driving challenges along the route. Philip will have to negotiate getting across the busy Sefako Makhato Drive, then onto the M1 and R80 highways, before facing the biggest challenge of them all, negotiating the darkness and uncertainty of the Dasport tunnel. From there, it's a simpler drive through the industrial suburb of Laudium and onto the outskirts of Tshwane before reaching Swartkops Raceway, its destination.
To change the lanes between cars left and right, that's a nervous one, all the way to the port. Changed my lanes. Luckily, we went through that one. Now, for the big one, the tunnel.
Tshwane is a city on the easternmost tip of one of the oldest mountain ranges in the world, the Magaliesberg. These wave-shaped geographic features are interspersed throughout the city. And while there are numerous ways over them, Philip's shortest route to Swartkops is right through them. This is known as the Daspoort Tunnel and poses Philip his greatest hurdle in getting the load delivered on time.
Visibility is very poor. But the problem is it's very narrow. There's a walking alley with a fence, and then you've got a middle lane and then pass from the front.
Philip has to ensure his wide load stays centered on the narrow lane. Here, darkness is his greatest challenge, as seeing the edges of his trailer becomes harder and harder the further he progresses through the tunnel.
My co-driver sitting next to me is actually guiding me and said, listen, come closer. I'm guiding on the right-hand side lane. But if a truck comes from the front, that's very close shape. It's like a 100 mil gap between two of them. We just misses each other.
The welcome sight of the end of the tunnel grows ever larger, and Philip's task becomes easier. Swartkops Raceway beckons, and for the team, it's a triumphant entry for one of the event's biggest drawcards.
Critical offloading is to make sure it doesn't go skew off. I need to get it all the way level, steady, down.
The final challenge is getting the trucks offloaded. With limited visibility, each truck is slowly winched back off the trailer. But driver Pete needs to be absolutely sure of his line.
I'm al 85, mate. Check on, Peter. If you go a bit to the left or the right, chances of flipping it is very good.
En jy sit bo in hierdie trok, jy kan nie onder jou sien.
Man, steek om.
Goliath is off. Pete can't help but take it for a spin round the track.
It's a nice car. I also like to have one like this. But time goes on.
Dit is vir ons 'n plesier om mense te gaan entertain. Dis lekker. Ons geniet dit.
My passion is to build something unique for somebody you don't see every day on the road. I'm a motorsport guy all my life. That's my passion. I love it.
As we've seen, getting large vehicles with even larger wheels from place to place can be a momentous task. But how does that task differ when the vehicle you're moving doesn't actually have any wheels at all?
The city of Cape Town, famous for its flat-topped mountain and beautiful coastline. It's also the working home of South Africa's second busiest port.
The Victoria and Albert waterfront is a mecca for tourists and a regular stop-off for cruise ships and container vessels.
From the large Asian fishing fleets to the oil tankers heading to West Africa, it's a busy hub that's operational 365 days a year. From crude oil coming in to fresh produce going out, this artery of economic activity brings prosperity to this city.
But this harbour doesn't run itself. To get ships safely in and out, it needs helpers. Big ones.
Weighing in at 240 tons, nearly 23 metres long and almost 8 metres wide, the 2208 stand tug is no pushover. This hard-working tugboat is central to the smooth workings of a harbour. Its powerful engine and unique ability to move backwards and sideways as well as forwards is vital to preventing harbourside traffic jams.
My name is Brent Sickle, and I'm the production manager for Damen Shipyards Cape Town. The 2208 stand tug is a modern sea-going tug, which is used for harbour or coastal water operations, and she's normally used for towing or moving other vessels. And it's a proven design that has been with us for many years.
Damon designs them, builds them, and services them. But when it comes to getting them into the water, it's not as simple as it may seem. To launch, the vessel needs to be lowered from a specialised platform known as a synchro lift, situated over 4 kilometres away from the Damon shipyard at the V&A Waterfront's dry dock. An overland journey for the tugboat is inevitable, and it's time for the abnormal load experts to step in.
I'm Christopher van der Merwe, and I'm sales manager, specifically looking after coastal and also the shipyards. So therefore Damen is one of our bigger clients. Fortunately enough, we have done numerous loads or similar loads before. This one was a 240-ton load, so it varies in size, and therefore there's different application that goes with it.
This experience is vital in getting the load safely onboarded and moving. With loads this big and this heavy, there are numerous safety concerns at play.
The main thing is you need to treat each and every load as a separate entity almost. Never ever get too at ease, otherwise you will make mistakes and there will be accidents. And in these cases, accidents are fatal.
With boats of this size, anything can happen, anything can fail because of the weight. So it is important that we ensure that our staff are always safe and they're following the correct procedures, and that when the boat's being loaded, that she is secured correctly onto the trailer for safe passage to the sinker.
There's a large team of people working to make sure this load is accident-free. It's focused and detail-driven work.
We'll be doing the prep work on the 2208 vessel. We'll actually be jacking it to a height on her cradles, placing stools underneath it, so that ALE can actually come in with their trailer and position her underneath. Then she'll be secured on the trailer for the move tomorrow.
The team faced the challenging task of getting the 240-ton tugboat safely secured onto the trailer. First, 4 hydraulic jacks are fixed into position to lift the load off its supports to allow the trailer access. The boat's uneven distribution of weight and unique shape means this is a delicate balancing act. The jacks are raised incrementally so the team can slide wooden supports underneath. It takes several hours to raise the tug high enough for the trailer, but it's time well spent to ensure the lift is completed safely.
My name is Luke Stefan, and I'm the rigging supervisor for ALD Heavy Lift. It involves overseeing large lifts, large installations, and moves like this.
The team get to work, and it's time to bring in the 60-ton jacks.
So for this one, we used our 60-ton jacks, which is 4 of them, obviously enough to jack up this load. And that's the operation that we do beforehand to make sure that the load is in the air in order for us to allow to move the trailer underneath. And from there, we drop the jacks down so that we are on the trailer, remove the jacks, and then we are free to, obviously after we have done all our lashing and change and everything, we are free to move.
These hydraulic jacks provide a sturdy and reliable method for lifting large objects like this tugboat. But the jacks can only raise by a relatively small amount compared to the height that's required for the tugboat to be lifted so that the specialized trailer can be positioned underneath. So to achieve this height using these jacks, the team used a technique known as a bird box, which means simply that the jack performs its first lift, up it goes. The team then slide in timber supports underneath. The jack and the tugboat on top of that then sits on those supports and uses that as a platform for its next lift. It goes up. 2 more supports are slid in underneath, only this time they go in at an angle that's perpendicular to the level under it. The jack then uses that level for its next lift, and this process continues until that desired height is reached. But what's critical about this bird box technique is that the timbers need to be meticulously placed so that the weight of the tugboat pushing down is evenly distributed and that the jacks have a sturdy platform to lift from. Because we've all played Jenga, and we know what can happen to a stack of timbers if it becomes unstable. The bird boxes are built and Luke raises the jacks. But one of the bird boxes has an issue, and Luke's not happy with the weight distribution. This is costing the team valuable time.
A slight delay can tick over and have a ripple effect on the whole logistics.
Okay, boys, just keep it steady. How long? Just repositioning, yep. Just repositioning. Let's keep that lip straight, please. Left, steady. Keep those eyes on the pedestal, please.
After repositioning, the team attempt another raise. This time, the timber's evenly spaced and the weight holds.
Finally, the team have reached the height they need and the trailer moves into position. Getting it loaded will require some skillful driving.
My name is Marco Khan, I'm a transport supervisor.
One of those things you don't want to think about, but catastrophically, something could fail, a step could fail. You could have the boat actually topple off the trailer if it's not managed correctly.
Finally, the onload is complete and the team step down to wait for morning.
Obviously, we try to set up the evening before because we have an arrangement with the port that we move when the traffic is low. So preferably before or as close to the sunrise. We get our port security in place because we can't move the load without port security. We have our own escorts and all our operators, everyone in place.
It's 5:30 a.m. The traffic escorts are on board and the team are ready to get moving. The team faces considerable pressure at the outset of the route. Leaving the safety of the Damon shipyard requires the careful maneuver of the 240-ton load down a small step. It then faces a sharp right turn onto a public road with a very narrow clearance from a fence. Accompanied by traffic escorts, the load will then travel on the remote-controlled trailer down Duncan Road. The distance to the dry dock is only 4 kilometers, but our heavy load will be traveling at walking speed and will have to navigate through a gated construction yard to access the busy intersection by 7 a.m. before traffic has built up. Once through this intersection, the load then needs to pilot between 2 ships at the dry dock to reach its pre-approved parking bay. From here, it will be launched at the appointed time.
The journey faces multiple challenges, with everything needing to run like clockwork. Each task has a set time limit to be completed, and any delays could affect the entire operation.
The boat is ready to leave the safety of the shipyard along a sloped surface. And the unique height and weight constraints of this load make this one of the most stressful parts of the whole journey for Mark, who will pilot the vehicle using a very particular mode of transport.
This trailer specifically is a SPT, which is a self-propelled trailer. And for that reason, it doesn't need a tractor to pull it. It's got the power pack at the back, and that then allows the operator to basically use a remote control to move the load.
Keep it straight. I need eyes on that fence as well, eh? Who's on it?
If you don't do your correct suspension setup, your trailer can sink to the one side and you can lose the load because you're going down a ramp. So your half of your center of your trailer can bottom out. So your chassis of the trailer can touch the ground and you can damage it.
Mark begins to pilot the load down the ramp. His main constraint is the perimeter fence, a tight angle to negotiate. The first attempt halts. There's not enough room to get round the fence. Mark will need to reverse to get his angle just right. Again, the angle of the load isn't quite right. The team is on a tight deadline. They have to reach the intersection before 7 a.m. or they won't be allowed to cross over into the dry dock. It's the third attempt, and everything is riding on this. The boat is through, and Mark is visibly relieved. The team has valuable time to make up, to ensure that they get through the next obstacle on time. And piloting the boat along the narrow streets has its own challenges.
Traffic is a major problem, especially early in the morning. So we have to plan with the City of Cape Town and the Metro Police. Space is going to be pretty tight, so we're going to have to keep our eyes peeled more, especially going around corners and all of that.
Once on the road, the tension eases up, but not for Mark. He's focused on making sure he keeps the trailer level.
Eyes on the road, boys. You see anything, you let me know. All clear. How are we looking on that intersection? Traffic escort, head on, take a look. All clear, front left. Looking good, back right. What a morning. Steady on, we have eyes on the driveway. Clearance on overhead light is good. That's what I want to hear. All clear, back right. How's my bottom over that speed bump? Looks good, Mark. Over.
It's the same as you driving, but you know that you don't have a steering wheel, you just have a remote. Steering and then leveling the trailer. It's all regarding with communication. There's not good communication, you're not sure what can happen.
While Mark pilots the load from behind, the rest of the team keep a keen lookout for complications.
An extra set of eyes is always better because you might see something that he doesn't.
The first 3 kilometers have gone smoothly. The team are on schedule with 10 minutes to go before their 7 a.m. deadline. But up ahead lies the gate through the Port Authority construction area, and it's locked.
It's a small problem, but with big ramifications. This intersection is a very busy thoroughfare, and the agreement is they need to be through by 7 a.m. It's now 6:55.
Waiting for the master key to come, and then we'll be on our way.
The key is, what we have heard is that there's a lot of changing contractors on this side, and each contractor, typically when they finish up, they'll just put on a chain and put on a lock. And then for some reason, Transnet doesn't end up with a copy of that key, and that can cause a very big delay.
Eventually, it's good old-fashioned bolt cutters to the rescue.
Eyes. Right, looking good. Left, you've got about half a meter on the deck. Mano? Steady on. How much? You've got a full length to play with here. Back right, looking good, Mark. Okay, keep it coming, keep it coming. Clear on the right. Left looking good, yeah, Mark.
The trailer makes its way through the shortcut with a minute to spare. The tugboat is about to cross over the intersection into the dry dock. But from here, the team can already see a potential problem. And it's all down to parking.
Oh, there's just another vessel in our parking bay.
Damon's slot in the dry dock has been booked for several weeks. But it seems the other boat owners aren't ready or able to leave.
It's about them deploying the team and taking it back again. So I think let's put it up because can you just go and maybe go and measure to see if we can get around it. Because it's actually on the side.
We'll ask Bob now when
The decision is made to clear some space outside the gates as a holding area for the tugboat. It's a tight squeeze, with passing traffic a little too close to comfort for our team, especially since their progress is out of their hands. But the tension doesn't let up. Mark still has to pilot the tug through this narrow gate.
Steady on, steady on. Elevation looking good, yeah. Come in, Jimmo, front right. Front right has enough space. And left. You've got room, you've got room.
we need to be in this lane, and this is not ready yet, so that's also Synchro's responsibility to move this vessel forward. Once they have moved this vessel forward, they first need to remove all the scaffolding, and then we can move in and offload. Using the same operation that we unloaded, basically, we can then offload onto the rails in order for Darman to move out.
But first, they need to get rid of Olga. She's been having some work done and created so much rust and residue, it seems she's been rooted to her tracks. And until she moves, none of the others can.
A tractor is summoned to tow the gigantic vessel away. But will its pulling power be enough to overcome that rust? The tractor's wheels are sliding as its engine strains against the weight of the ship. The ALE team are getting nervous, and the Synchrolift team are going to need much more pulling power. A second tractor is tied to the first. Will this make the difference? Second engine kicks in, and Olga is on the move. For the ALE team, it's a big sigh of relief. Work can continue. The final task for the team is to move the tugboat from its parking bay in the dry dock across to the Synchrolift, which will lower the boat into the water. To do this, the load is jacked up, the self-propelled trailer is removed, and then jacked down onto movable supports called bogies. A transfer carriage is moved over to the parking bay, and a tractor will push the tugboat on its bogies onto the transfer carriage and along its tracks. Once it reaches the Synchrolift, the tractor disengages and the platform is lowered into the water via steel wire motor-driven winches. It's here that the tugboat is finally ready to begin its life as a commissioned vessel.
Like the onload, the team need to ensure the tugboat is balanced to prevent a dry land capsize. Nothing but total and sustained concentration will do.
Once it reaches the Synchrolift, the tractor disengages and the platform is lowered into the water via steel wire motor-driven winches. It's here that the tugboat is finally ready to begin its life as a commissioned vessel.
I'd say it's very rewarding because you can stand back from a job that's lasted maybe 2 months on a project and you can say, wow, you know, we've done some really good teamwork together.
This is, for me, it's like playing with big Lego. Because at the end of the day, you need to put everything together and you need to make sure that each and every piece fits into each other. And if they don't, you will have problems. But I think that's one of the bigger things. And then also the fact that Each job has got its own constraints, its own challenges, its own exciting opportunities. So, and our company loves to be creative with regards to a solution in order to also save the customer on their cost. So I think that's what excites me, that each job is something completely new and different.
I love seeing something being taken from concept, seeing the sketch on a piece of paper and discussing that with our design team, looking at all the technical aspects that go along with it and the challenges especially, and then seeing it unfold in the next few months to the actual vessel or mega structure that we now see. For me, that is amazing.
This tugboat is a vital cog in the day-to-day running of ports and harbours around the world. So the next time you turn on your lights, or cook dinner, or power up your television, keep in mind what it takes to make that happen. The crucial work of the men and women behind abnormal loads.
Loads that help build our homes, our offices, our schools. Loads that thrill and entertain. Loads that ultimately improve all of our lives. I'm Rob Bell, and this is the world of abnormal load. Mining makes the world go round. That's probably not something we think about every day, but the truth is, without the resources we dig out of the ground, our lives would be very different.
Gold, platinum, palladium, coal, manganese, iron ore. The list of minerals below our feet is not a short one, and each of these minerals plays a part in our daily lives. From our laptop computers, to the food we eat, to the cars we drive. These resources keep us healthy, productive, entertained, and stimulated.
But what does it take to get these resources out of the ground and into our hands? A lot more than meets the eye.
The Highveld region of Mpumalanga in South Africa is famous for its surface coal deposits, and our first load plays an important role in preparing ground for these deposits to be mined.
I'm Adrian Nell, working for Tal Mining. I'm the operations manager for this specific project. Tal Mining is a contractor mining. We only do the removing of the ground up to the material. In this case, it's coal. Once we're done, we'll start rehabilitating it, but we're only doing the stripping of material. So the deposits is not ours, we just mine for the client. This specific project started off about 3 years ago. Start looking at the area where we're mining, get the people involved. This Hitachi 2600 used for overburden stripping. This is one of the machines that we needed for the operations that will be in production in the next month. So we need to gel the machines and the people in the next week.
The machine in question is the giant Hitachi EX2600-6. This behemoth of an earth mover is 254 tons of chassis, boom, bucket and tracks, and has been assembled here at the Tau Assembly Yard. Despite being a mode of transport capable of its own locomotion, the hard soils and grit of the open roads can damage these tracks, hence a need to be transported rather than driven.
This specific machine comes from Katu. We took it apart, we transported to this assembly yard of ours. We then put it together, and from there we need to get it into the mine.
Getting the excavator from assembly to mining yard is going to require the skills of someone with years of experience. Someone like this man.
I'm Fritz Kroon, the owner of Fritz Kroon Transport. I started the business in 1999 with one truck, Old International Paystar. And from there on, we've grew to a magnificent company that we are now.
Loading the excavator onto the trailer will take some ingenuity and a lot of elbow grease. The Fritz Kroon team will dig a 1.5-meter trench underneath the excavator, keeping the tracks of the machine resting steadily on terra firma. The trailer will then be backed into the cavity, and the hydraulic pistons will inch upwards towards the underbelly of the excavator, supporting it and raising it away from the ground. Then, in order to generate enough power to haul the load out of the trench, Fritz's team will connect a second truck cab to the one already attached to the trailer.
It's a resourceful but daring plan, and critical to its success will be the correct depth of trench and having enough horsepower to get this gigantic piece of machinery lifted and stable.
What could go wrong today? Maybe some hydraulic cylinders bursting because of the settings not right on the trailer. That becomes a problem and the whole thing can topple over. You work with machines and all that, there's always a little bit of stress around it and worries about it. We try to minimize that, to quadruple check everything, every valve that must be open is open, everyone that must be closed is closed.
For the trailer to be able to lift this gigantic load, it uses something called a hydraulic lift, which essentially transforms a small force into a big force, one big enough to pick up a 250-ton excavator. And it can do this because of the clever way it uses pressure. Now, pressure describes the relationship between a force and how much area that force is pushing over. So, I've drawn a little diagram here to show how pressure's used in the hydraulic lift. So that noisy hydraulic pump is represented over on this side. Now that creates a force which pushes down on this relatively small piston on this side, which creates a pressure in this fluid in the system, and that's called a hydraulic fluid. That hydraulic fluid transfers the pressure all the way around to this much bigger piston that wants to lift on this side. The only physical compromise is that for this relatively small force on this side, that piston needs to move a fairly long way compared to the small amount of lift you get over here, but with a much bigger force. But fortunately for this excavator, a small amount of lift is all that's needed.
The team is ready, and the enormous 24-wheeler low bed is backed into the trench. This is precision driving, and all in reverse.
The team's pinpoint accuracy has ensured the trailer sits perfectly under the excavator. And now the gap between them is supplemented by one of the most sophisticated and modern materials available: timber.
As the low bed lifts, it takes the weight of the excavator, lifting it off the ground. All's going according to plan. All that can be planned, that is.
Weather is always a problem. It's a challenging one today. Big problems, obviously it's rain. Previous times we had slipping or spinning because it was wet. With abnormals in South Africa, you're not allowed to travel when you have to put your lights on. So that's either mist, rainy, or at night.
Rain has unexpectedly started falling, and with the entire team on the clock, any delay in delivery will cost them valuable time and money.
The rain clouds in Urgis have lifted, and the team see an opportunity to spring into action. But lifting the 254-ton apparatus is going to need a little more horsepower than Fritz currently has. Luckily, he's come prepared.
In South Africa, although it's not on public roads, we need at least 20% traction. We use two 600 horsepower front horses with a normal I-shift gearbox. The second one, or the one coupled to the trailer or the gooseneck, is with a Allison transfer box and a torque converter, which transfer the power much better down towards the wheels. They don't have clutch pedals anymore, it's only brakes, it's all automatic.
A specialized coupling connects the two cabs, giving a combined engine capacity of 1,200 horsepower. Still, the two drivers are going to have to use all their concentration to get the load on the road.
With dark skies looming and the threat of further rain, the team need to get a shift on. Will their combined pulling power be enough in these treacherous conditions?
So as soon as he starts to accelerate a bit, you would feel it's taking power, and then he would radio to the guy in front and say, right, please proceed, and it would start moving. So I've got my own handheld to talking to the guys, just to oversee everything that's going on. They know exactly what to do. The thing that we don't want to hear is quick few stops behind each other to say there's a problem, yeah.
The engines start to turn. Will the excavator budge? The combined power of two cabs overcome the 254-ton weight, and the load is free. Next stop, the Tau mining yard, just 11 kilometers away down one dusty district road. It's quite literally straightforward, but the sandy terrain and the ever-present threat of rain make it more complicated than it seems.
The 11-kilometer bit that's in front of us feels like 111. Obviously, it's metal fatigue, and the stress levels are more, the concentration is more.
The miserly speed of just 5 kilometers an hour ensures the load travels safely. But with rain threatening and the associated risks growing, it's got to be tempting to put your foot down.
Trailers are not built for that type of road that we're on. You can break pinions, you can break axles, you can pop a cylinder. So there's a lot of things that can happen that we don't want to let it happen.
But the rain clouds have abated and the end is in sight.
When you finish and we deliver the load, then it's all over. Okay, it's offloaded. It's job satisfaction. It's feeling proud. Accomplish another tick on your box. We've done that. Right, what's the next challenge? These are in our blood. We love it.
It's job well done for the Fritz Kroon team, who, despite the obstacles of the weather, have delivered on time. Coal, despite its environmental consequences, remains one of South Africa's most economically viable resources. It drives energy production in the country, and much of it's exported for international use. But it's not the only resource this country exports to the world.
Platinum group metals, or PGMs, are a very different resource to coal. These metals like palladium, rhodium, and of course platinum itself have very high melting points and unique catalytic properties. They line the insides of our car exhausts, make great medical equipment and computer hard drives. And because they're reusable, they're more environmentally efficient too.
But getting these metals out of the ground is a far more complex operation than coal. And today's load plays a vital role in this operation.
I'm Ashraf Dawud. We are a steel engineering and fabrication company based in Rustenburg. We mainly supply all of the mines in and around Rustenburg with all of the steel fabrication equipment, valves, pumps, mainly servicing all of the mining sites in and around the greater Rustenburg area.
My name is Talent Tanda. I'm a production manager for Maxi Engineering. My main job is to start from the quotations, estimations, go to site, get the cost done, get the orders, material procurement, make sure that everything works smooth until the job is given to the client. The load we are going to load today is a 200-ton beam. It's a beam that is used to load PGMs of platinum. It was designed in such a way that it can take 200 tons of smooth soil.
The structure is split into two pieces. The one piece is about 14 tons, and the other piece is about 5 to 6 tons in weight.
The 20-ton concentrate storage bin can hold a capacity of 200 tons and is designed to store and discharge raw materials at a specifically designed flow rate. Its custom-shaped walls prevent the mined material from building up, and its job is vital to keep production flowing at the Anglo-Platinum Mogalakwena mine near Mokopane.
When we manufacture, we need to make sure that we have made it to the dot, the size that needs to be done.
In fabrication, something of this size, you're working on about 5 millimeters of tolerance on each specific item, which is not a lot. Their tolerances are extremely important. And the last thing you'd want is everything gets to site and then it doesn't fit. That could be a monumental problem, actually more like a disaster.
The first engineering challenge is to get the 20-ton capacity storage bin onto the trailer. To prevent unnecessary strain on the structure in the onload and along the journey, the bin is loaded in 2 parts. To do this, the team will use a 50-ton crane capable of lifting 5 times its own weight with an optimal crane height, a towering 40 meters above the ground. The trailer will have to park as close as possible to the crane. Once the first half of the storage bin is loaded, the trailer will inch forward and the second half of the bin will follow the same painstaking process.
So the crane that we've selected for this, even though the structure itself, or the bin, if you can call it, is 20 tons, the crane that will be lifting this will be a 50-ton crane. It's over capacity. Sometimes we also add about a 10 to 15% threshold just to ensure that we are within the comfortable guidelines and safety standards in lifting that.
My name is William Tawane. I'm driving the crane for a long time.
We've got to ensure that our guys are well trained in order to manage the load when we are in the loading phase. Make sure we have the correct equipment available to do the load, because everything's planned on a very tight schedule. So if we delay the load on our side, it has a knock-on effect on everyone else, and that can monumentally increase the costs and also delay the end user when it comes to installation on site.
When you work, you must have a rigger. A rigger is tight the load. When you don't tight your load exactly, it's gonna follow.
With the riggers happy, William is ready to load the first half of the platinum bin, the funneled section. It's up to the driver to position his trailer in just the right place for the most even weight distribution. Using additional ropes to steady the load as it hangs, the team slowly maneuver the funnel above the trailer. A load this heavy can easily swing out of place. The trailer readjusts to ensure the correct balance is maintained. The funnel lowers. The weight is just right. Now it's time for the second component of the bin to load. With less line of sight, the the driving team has to rely on effective communication to ensure he's in the right position.
The load is on board and the rigging team breathe a sigh of relief. It's time to get it strapped down and prepare for the journey ahead.
I'm Joe Musalam Khanedi. Since I've been working here at the Abnormal 2000 until now.
My name is Pascalis Salele Mahache.
Sometimes we're working together, sometimes I'm working with all the trucks and the companies.
The load will undertake an extended 3-day journey across 3 provinces, traveling over 450 kilometers. Its first task will be to leave the Maxgill yard with just centimeters to spare as the load moves out. It will then make its way down the N4 and onto the N1, passing the nation's capital, Tshwane, and past Marble Hall. Here they'll have to wait for a new traffic escort before proceeding into the Limpopo province. The team will then need to pass through the small town roads of Mokopane and onto the Macalaquena mine. It's a long-haul journey, with stamina and patience key to a successful delivery.
But the team's first big test is just meters away from their departure point, getting through the narrow Maxgill entranceway.
Trees, telephone lines, and a sharp left turn onto the road all make this a perilous undertaking for our drivers. Pascal and Talent guide the vehicle through this tiny gap. Any damage to the load could have serious ramifications later on. The load is safely out the gates, barring a few scratches from the overhanging branches. It's time to hit the road. But the open road is not all plain sailing.
The risks on the road, we've got the risk of the other people, they don't understand the abnormals. Even if we are traveling at the street, they just came to you. So they can come to the load, you see. Even if you show them it's the abnormal.
With the traffic escort providing clearance for oncoming traffic, the load can make good ground, meaning their load is likely to arrive on time.
But a long journey like this also has its delays. Whilst this setting might not seem like an impediment, it's a real problem when it comes to the traffic escort.
The storage bin has reached the provincial border between Mpumalanga and Limpopo. And it's here that it has to wait for a new provincial escort to accompany it over the last stretch. For the drivers, it means long, inevitable waits on the side of the road. It's a common problem for many abnormal load drivers. And this isolation poses far more than just boredom.
Ding wat ons kry altyd, ons kry by ander plekke. Hulle gooi vir ons by 'n wrong plek, want ons sê hierso, ons kan nie parkeer. En dan ons gaan seer kry. Dan ek bel my eienaar. En dan die eienaar, hy sê vir my, "Oké, ek sal plan maak." Dan hy maak ook plan dat ons kan stop by 'n veilige plek. Ons kan nie daar so slap altyd hulle maak die mense doodmaak van die abnormaal. Hulle vat die wiele, hulle vat die battery en die tires. En dis daai plekke wat gevaarlik.
Traffic escorts aren't just there to satisfy bureaucracy. For the abnormal load drivers, they offer security and safety, not just for themselves, but for other road users.
Sometimes it's better if you are traveling with the police of the escort. They can show that this is dangerous. You mustn't come closer to them. You must just stay away from the abnormals.
Eventually, after a long wait, the Limpopo traffic escort is here, and the drivers can take off again.
By traveling with the trucks, you see a lot of countries and the other provinces. You experience many different things. You learn a lot.
For our drivers, it's a chance to relax and take in the one-of-a-kind bushveld scenery.
South Africa is a beautiful country. I love it.
Is the country have mountains, rivers. It's a beautiful country.
After a week on the move, the concentrate bin arrives at its destination, 435 kilometres down the road. Here it will be offloaded and installed to become a vital cog in the process of collecting the mine materials that make possible our mobile phones, our laptops, and even our motor vehicles.
We were very proud with the way we did the job because it was quite a challenging job. You know, when you look at the drawing, you said, oh, are we going to make this thing? But, you know, as you go on seeing the thing standing, the beams is in, but we are so proud as McGill to do such a nice job.
I think one of the most fun things of working with something of this size is taking it from a flat piece of paper, getting it into a 3D model, managing it through the fabrication process, and at the end, getting it out to the client, and the client phones and say, hey, I've got my stuff, everything's okay, it's fitted in, it's working. It gives you a very, very great deal of satisfaction.
When it comes to what PGMs are used for, we probably tend to think most about electronics, laptops, television sets, medical equipment. But did you know they also play a large part in farming?
Here in South Africa, farming is an important part of the economy. It's a significant provider of employment, especially in the rural areas, and a major source of foreign exchange.
But only 12% of the land is really suitable for growing crops, and the soil tends to be low in nitrogen, which means there's a huge demand for one of PGM's biggest byproducts, fertilizer.
My name is Ezra Mlambo. I'm the General Manager Operations for Fosco. Fosco basically it's a phosphate company. Basically we make fertilizer, phosphoric acid and sulfuric acid. For the country, we are the main producer of phosphate-based fertilizer. We have our sulfuric acid plant A and B, which is the older plant. So in the B plant, we are replacing what we call cold heat exchanger. So one of the older units has reached its end of life.
The task for replacing the exchanger has been won by engineering specialists Tyson Krupp.
My name is Andre van Zyl, and I'm a project manager with ThyssenKrupp Industrial Solutions South Africa. This is a cold heat exchanger. It is in the sulfur gas plant, and inside this vessel, you won't believe it, there's about 21 kilometers of 50 millimeters tubing.
So we spent about 3,300 hours to complete it. At one stage, we almost utilized the complete workshop to be sure that we get this thing done in time for the client so that we can actually transport this thing to site tomorrow.
At 16 meters long, 8.5 meters high, and 120 tons in weight, the heat exchanger is no slouch when it comes to a sizable load. And it's a fragile load too. The delicate maze of tubes inside the main cavity can't be damaged without the efficiency of the heat exchange system being affected once installed.
It's no small task to move this giant piece of machinery over 700 kilometers to the Fosco plant in Richards Bay. And that's why the team have called in the experts.
My name is Niels Brink, and I'm working at the Mammoth as a sales manager. I'm working now 35 years as a rigger, and in the sales I'm about, I will say, around 5 to 6 years. I enjoy working with the guys and be part of a team. You see, in a Mammoth, you're not individual, but you're working as a team. We need to transport a cold heat exchanger from here to Richards Bay. Hopefully we can do it in 11 to 14 days, so it's a quite challenging job for us.
As in the last 4 days, we battled to get the truck-trailer combination here because of some industrial action at another company where they offloaded. So that has been released last night, and it's on its way. We are waiting for it. It will be here soon.
As last-minute checks get underway, the extra-large 13-axle trailer finally arrives. The team are ready to get started with the onload. But within minutes of its arrival, it's clear there's going to be a problem with the trailer.
The day when we arrived, we realized that the trailer's not going to fit in here.
Well, the trailer that we've got, the Nicholas, is too long to do those tight turns.
So we have to find a solution, this cold heat exchanger, to turn it around in a straight line so we actually can load it onto the conventional trailer.
With the clock ticking, the team get to work to come up with a new plan.
I've been in this game for just about 36 years, and I guess one gets used to it. I think lessons learned. You need to be able to think on your feet.
Having extra resources at your disposal is certainly one way of managing problems like this, especially when you have a resource as impressive as this one.
SPMT is a self-propelled modular transporter. It's good for site moves, tight areas, places where your trucks cannot get into. We need to move it in underneath the load, obviously offset because the center of gravity is a little offset.
Ja, is reg. Kry net so lank uit dat ons die volklip kan inkry.
With the reduced size and increased maneuverability, the team will be able to position the SPMT in front of the heat exchanger to move it. But its height is significantly greater than that of the trailer, so the team will use hydraulic jacks to raise the heat exchanger and slip the SPMT underneath. It will then use its hydraulics to take the 120-ton weight and reposition itself inside the workshop. Now facing the door, it'll then be lowered back onto the jacks and the SPMT will be driven out. Finally, the truck and trailer will reverse into the workshop and the heat exchanger will be lowered onto the trailer. With the heat exchanger raised, it's time for the SPMT driver to pilot the trailer into place. With an offset center of gravity, or COG, it's going to take precision driving.
You have to make sure that the COG is correctly placed on the SPMTs and make sure that everything is in good order for the transportation. Otherwise, if it's not, the COG is not centralized, yeah, you can have facing other challenges.
It's not good for the trailer as you'll only have pressure on the one side on one field and nothing on the other side, which makes it dangerous. You can tilt and drop the load.
The SPMT backs in slowly. It's got very little room for error. The trailer is in place, and it's time to reposition the SPMT. Despite the increased maneuverability, it's still a tight squeeze to get the trailer repositioned. It's time to get the heat exchanger onto the hydraulic jacks in preparation for the truck and trailer to back in.
It's nerve-wracking, but once it's done, it's a good relief that you really feel good about it.
With the last light fading, the team get the go-ahead to reverse the 13-axle trailer into the workshop. Once in, they lash the heat exchanger down, and it's job done for the day. It's been hours of setbacks, and they're already behind schedule for their 700-kilometre journey to Richards Bay.
It's 9 in the morning, and the Gauteng abnormal transport escorts have arrived. It's time to get this towering load out of the workshop and onto the road.
My naam is Chris Meyer. Ek is aangestel by Mammoth, Suid-Afrika, as 'n projekbestuurder. So die uitdaging met die cold heat exchanger wat ons gelaai het, jy wil glad nie vertragings ervaar nie. Die ander ervarings wat jy ook beleef op die pad is gewoonlik goed buite jou beheer, soos weeromstandighede. Ons almal maak staat op toerusting breek partykeer.
It's been a journey for us from last year when we started working on this project, working on the very tight deadlines, planning our shutdown. If there is any delay, then you cannot either install this unit during the shutdown. You miss that opportunity. It will affect our production, which will affect the availability of fertilizer basically for the country. Therefore, for us, planning and delivering on time is very, very, very critical.
And that's why the pressure is there. We need the load to make sure that we're on the road, and we only got a few days to play with.
The load will travel at approximately 30 kilometres an hour over 15 days, from Vanderbijlpark to Richards Bay in KwaZulu-Natal, a journey of over 700 kilometres. Its biggest challenges are along the R553 route coming out of Vanderbijlpark. Here it will face numerous low-hanging power lines, some that will need to be shut down and lifted by electricity supplier Eskom. Then, approaching a busy intersection near Sebokeng, the load will need to navigate congested traffic. Once through, it will face a diversion where the load will need to go off-road, along a potholed side street and a sharp left turn back onto the R553. From there, the journey eases up as they navigate country roads all the way to Richards Bay. But the built-up areas of Gauteng offer considerable challenges for this sizable load.
My name is Lenford Kwetani. I'm working for Mammoth. I'm driving for multi-axle abnormal load. I like it, the abnormal loads, because you're driving different big loads. Some of them, they are heavy. Some of them, the height is too high. Some of them is very wide. So I take it easy for the people that are driving car, or the people that are walking next to the road.
With the escort moving ahead to calm oncoming traffic, the load sets out.
Up ahead, the team's first challenge, an overhead power line crossing the highway.
Because it's dangerous. If you're touching there, the truck, all the tires is gonna bend off. It cannot bend the truck, cannot bend me also. It cannot kill other people that are walking next to there.
This is going to be a painstaking process, as every line will need to be lifted to prevent the heat exchanger catching any of the cables.
A line snags, and the load is brought to a halt. Any damage to this line could cause further delays. The load is through, and the team check another box on their long, long list. But there's no room to breathe easy. Ahead are more power cables, a busy intersection, and a dramatic detour that will take them over some very rough terrain.
Die uitdaging wat ons gehad het op die Golden Highway R553 is Eskom kan ons ongelukkig nie ondersteun met die watershed power lines wat daaroor gaan nie. En ons moet 'n alternatiewe roete vinnig beplan en dit is deur Mashushu Street by Sebokeng.
To avoid this live, low-hanging line, the team will need to detour off the R553 and onto a service road. This means navigating chaotic traffic and pedestrians, travelling over a potholed section of road and a tight left turn to get back onto the R553.
I have to look after the load. It's like I'm carrying the baby, so I have to take care about the load. The people, they walking next to the road, they don't realize these things is big or wide. Then I have to use a hooter, then I hoot to him. So I have to take care about the people also, they are driving on the road.
Lanford successfully steers the 40-metre-long load through the traffic. But now, a new obstacle awaits him. A sharp right turn onto the detour. And in his path, a broken-down vehicle.
Langford, Chris and the team at Mammoth have to ensure there are no further delays with the transport of the 120-ton heat exchanger. But with the team about to take the load off the highway to avoid a power line, a new obstacle has arrived. A broken-down vehicle is now blocking their path.
Luckily, some local help is recruited for the vehicle, and with the obstruction removed, the load can proceed.
Yeah, if you're driving big load like this on the bad road, you have to driving very, very slowly because anything is gonna happen. Sometimes one axle is gonna prop out, it can come off the bolt or something. So on the potholes, I have to driving very, very slow, and then I have to take a very care.
The team reached the potholed section of the road. It's now or never to find out just how the suspension of the trailer will adjust to this new obstacle. It's tough on the axles, but the 40-metre-long trailer holds. For driver Lanford, one challenge remains to get through this detour. An extreme sharp left turn.
Very narrow, but I would have to take a care. I went drive a little bit on the right-hand side, then I turn left a little bit. Always I have to make a zigzag until I'm past there.
The load is through the turn.
As jy deur die bypass plekke beweeg, dan voel dit nogal tens en almal raak opgewonde, maar sodra jy daardeur beweeg, voel almal verlig en almal voel goed dat ons daardeur is en suksesvol deur is en geen ander uitdagings op die pad gehad het.
For the team, the rest of the journey involved 14 more days through some very scenic countryside, skirting the coalfields of Mpumalanga, down through northern KwaZulu-Natal and onto Richards Bay and the Phosphor plant. But with the pressures of the built-up Gauteng area behind them, the journey will be far less arduous.
It's been a journey for us from last year when we started working on this project, working on the very tight deadlines, planning our shutdown, and to see this unit here right on time before the beginning of our shutdown, it's excellent. It means all the planning that went very, very well.
We've got some of the best crews. I am fortunate as a project manager to have a leadership team, to have a quality system in place, and to have the people, the welders and the boilermakers working for us are definitely some of the best in the country. I'll put my head on it.
For me, I like it because I cross countries sometimes. I see different people and different load and different road also. So I like for my job.
Ek dink die meeste wat ek van hou deur die loop van so 'n aflewering is die feit dat jy saamwerk as 'n span. Jy voel goed as 'n span. Jy vertrou mekaar meer. Die span word baie sterker.
The next time you start up your car, or switch on your lights, or even raise a forkful of food to your mouth, it's worth remembering what it took to get it there. Because the big, important things that make our lives easier so often depend on hard-working men and women to go the extra mile to get them there.
These are people with years of experience, with a never-say-die attitude and a 24/7 commitment. People who allow you and I to live more comfortable lives and keep the wheels of industry turning. These are the people of Abnormal Load.